Hello and welcome back to week 19 of the No BS Homebuyers Live series, where we are breaking down the home buying process into simple, easy steps so you can go from thinking about buying to actually owning. And we are going to be focusing on the busy season. So if you're going to be shopping during the busy season, I need you to hear this. A fast market does not necessarily mean it needs to be a panic market. And we're going to talk more about this throughout the show today, but we want to really get into how to survive this busy season without getting overwhelmed, overpaying, or emotionally exhausted throughout the process because buying a house is already a bit taxing. So let's just really think about what the market is and what the busy season market means. So spring and summer are typically the busiest times of year in real estate, and that is for some obvious reasons, such as weather. No one really wants to move in the middle of winter. So most people are moving during nice weather times, which in most places is spring and summer. So when we're thinking about that and you're thinking about more people are moving, that typically means more buyers are going to be in the market. And more buyers equals more competition. So if there's a house that is worth selling and that is priced right, staged right, cleaned up, and done well, there likely are going to be multiple buyers trying to buy that house, even in the not busy season, but especially in the busy season. So, more competition tends to create the situations where you're going out of your budget, out of your comfort zone, and you don't even realize it until after because it plays out like an auction. And there's a lot of psychology behind an auction. So again, the spring and summer markets bring more buyers, more competition, but the good news is they also tend to bring more listings because again, people want to move during the nice weather. So you should have more options to choose from during the season, but you again are likely going to be competing with other people looking at those same options. So that means we also have to make faster decisions. You don't get a week to sit on it and talk about it. You maybe get a night. So we have to just come into the busy season with the preparation of that. And so when we are looking at houses and when we are putting in offers, we are really looking at the things that matter to us because busy season isn't bad. It just requires more preparation. So I like to point out that a prepared buyer feels excited during the home buying process. An unprepared buyer feels stressed. And we want you to be that prepared and excited buyer because buying a house really, truly is an exciting endeavor. And it should be enjoyable. Yes, it's the largest purchase you're going to make, but it should be enjoyable. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the busy season game plan and how you can stay competitive, but do it without completely losing your mind. And the first thing I think we should focus on is knowing your numbers before you fall in love. Knowing your numbers is just so important so you know where you're comfortable spending, what you can afford, and what range that, your ideal house is going to be in. And what I see people do wrong is they start emotionally shopping outside of their comfort zone. Say they're, qualified for 200,000, but they start looking at $350,000 houses. The likelihood that a house is going to take 150K off at their purchase price, pretty unlikely. But what's going to happen to you as that buyer looking at these $350,000 houses when you can only afford 200 is you're going to see all of these amenities that are awesome and great in this $350,000 house, and you're not going to get those in your price range. And you're going to be thoroughly disappointed with everything in your price range. And that will make you stressed out and upset and not really enjoy the process. So the fastest way to ruin the process is loving houses that you can't comfortably afford. So let's not do that. And we should also, when we're running our numbers, our budget should bring us peace. It should not bring us panic, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to afford the next bill if we get this house? That's not the goal of home ownership. Home ownership is to help you build wealth, not make you house poor. So let's talk about some other things that help when the busy season hits. And that would be being ready to move quickly. In the busy season, you don't get a ton of time for decisions. So you want to make sure you have all your paperwork in order, your pre-approval, ready. You want to have your documents ready to go for when you do get that house under contract, because you're going to be sending that to the bank right away. And then additionally, if you can schedule in flexibility or let your employer know that, hey, I might need a little bit more flexibility on my lunch hour or my break times because I'm going to be checking out houses and things are moving pretty quickly. So try to be ahead of the game and schedule that in advance. And I will tell you, a lot of people like to put on new properties on Thursday or Friday because then it leads into the weekend and hopefully the most amount of people can get in to see it and create more competition. So if you can get more flexibility towards the end of the week, that's typically when people are putting things on the market. And being ready to move quickly, not only in terms of pre-approval and documents, but also in your mental state. I want you to be able to look at the things that are going to work functionally with your life and know, like, hey, this is really going to work, or no, this really isn't going to work. And don't deviate from that just because, you really like something about the house. Like recently I showed a house that had a really awesome movie theater room, but the main level was just not usable. Like there wasn't even a shower on the main level. And that is where my client's going to be spending most of their time. And he had to think on it. It was a seriously cool movie room, but you have to be prepared to look at the functionality of the house too. And if it's not going to fit, just stop from the beginning on that. But good homes will move fast, but that doesn't mean you stop thinking about them. You got to keep thinking and you have to make a decision pretty quickly. But if you know what it is you want and what you really truly need, you can make those decisions a lot quicker. All right. Another one, we have talked about this in the past, is to not compare every house to the one that got away. This happens all the time. And the house you missed is not your soulmate. It's okay. You didn't get it, and that's going to be okay. Especially in competition situations, it does feel a little harder on the heart when you don't win the bid. But I promise you, there's a reason that you didn't get that house. But it can also teach you to be more prepared for the next one that comes along. And every house teaches you something about what like truly matters to you. And hindsight is 2020. So give it a day or two, let it relax until you can look back on it and realize, well, maybe that was the reason we didn't need that house. And then understand that competition is normal, especially during the busy season. Offers does not mean you're failing. If you don't have the best financing situation or you can't bring certain things to the table in your offers, you're probably going to have to write a few offers, and that's totally okay. You're not failing. It is part of the process. Busy markets can just be emotional, but we have to disconnect a little bit and not make emotional decisions because of them. We have to look at the house, our budget, and put all of that together to make sure that it's working properly. So that way we will be happy long term. And then have a strategy. Don't just hope that the house is going to come. If you're ready to buy a house, be prepared to write strong offers. Don't give away everything if you don't have to, obviously. And stay within your budget. Don't exceed your budget because you're going to be house poor later and that's not going to work for you. But write offers strong. If you are comfortable with just an info-only inspection and you don't want to, nitpick and penny and dime the sellers for little things, let them know that. That's great. If you have flexibility on your closing date or the title company you're using, those are all great things you can do. And you can always ask a seller's preference because sometimes a timeline is way more important than $5,000. You just have to talk with your realtor and talk with the seller's realtor and determine what it is their true motivation is and see if you can cater your offer to be that way. And then know your priorities. If you know you have to be out on a certain date, then I'm sorry, you don't have a flexible closing date unless you're willing to move twice. And then also know your priorities in your home. If you have to have a fenced yard and you're not going to have any additional money in the budget to put it in after, don't look at the house without a fenced yard. Know what it is exactly that you need and stick to those search criteria. And then understand compromises. So there is a difference between a need and a want. A need is something that if you don't have that in your house, you functionally will not be able to use it as well as you need to. And a want is something that would be nice to have, but it's not going to make or break your life if you don't get that. A need, for example, if you've got 4 kids, you need 2 bathrooms because if one breaks, you need a backup, especially during potty training times. Like those things, you need to understand, like, yes, I have to have these things, but maybe you don't need the huge backyard. You guys can kind of get away with a smaller backyard and the kids can play at the park that's nearby. That would be a compromise. So just understanding your needs and wants and being available and understanding 2 compromises will be very helpful and a good strategy to have during the busy season buying period. But buyers winning in busy season markets are the prepared ones, not always the richest ones. Again, if you can come up with on things that they truly need, money doesn't always win. It does play a big part, but it does not always win if you can get creative. All right, let's talk about some of the biggest busy season buying mistakes and where people get into trouble fast. Waiving everything blindly. This happened a ton during the COVID era. Everyone was writing off inspections, and now they are thinking about selling their house, and they're like, well, my house has quite a few issues. So please, please, please do not waive off everything blindly. When competition heats up, we do still see people writing things off like that. But if there's a way to mitigate some of your risk, do it, whether that's an info-only inspection or only asking for things, $5,000 or more. Essentially telling the sellers, like, hey, I'm not going to be asking for nitpicky things. But please don't just wave them off blindly, especially if you have no experience buying a house. Because homeownership costs money and things will come up. And if you have an eye for some of those things, that's helpful. Like if you work in the construction industry, that's helpful. But even without testing on the systems, you really don't know. So please don't just wave off everything blindly. And then emotional overbidding can be a big deal too. Again, when you're in a bidding war, it can feel a bit like an auction. And when you lose an auction, it doesn't feel great. However, who cares? Because later, if you had won that and you have no extra money at the end of the month, did you really win? Or are you in a worse position off than you were before when you were renting? So don't let yourself emotionally overbid. Set your limit, set your comfort zone, and don't go above that. There will be other opportunities. There will be other houses. Just stick to what you know you're comfortable with because life happens. And then burnout from touring too many homes. I do see that a lot when, especially in like kind of a lower price range, you're just trying to see everything because it might work. But you have to be careful because if you're looking at houses, let's go back to the fence situation. You don't have any money to put in a fence after, but you have to have it because you have a dog that will run away. Don't even look at a house without a fence. If you like it, it's not going to work out for you unless you know there's money to build, like space to build it in, or if you can build it into the contract. There's really no point at looking at something that doesn't fit your criteria. It wastes your time. It's exhausting through time, and it wastes the seller's time too, which is not exactly nice either. So don't tour too many homes because you will get exhausted from that. If you know it's not going to fit, put it on a maybe list after I check out all the things that do fit my list. And then feeling pressured to settle. If you are in a tight situation where you have to be somewhere by a certain time, one, try not to put yourself in that situation, or be prepared to have a short-term rental for a short amount of time because timelines don't always just work out in our favor. But also that pressure can lead to bad decisions. So make sure you have some kind of escape plans that, if you don't get the house in your ideal time frame, you have another route you can go, whether that's moving in with family or friends for a temporary amount of time. But just try to have a backup plan. Again, being prepared will always help you in this situation because any kind of pressure creates bad decisions. It creates rush decisions and emotional decisions. And your home, though, is a place where a lot of emotions are going to be happening is also a way to build wealth. So please try to remember that and don't set yourself up for more of a liability than you need to. All right. I do want you to remember this. The goal isn't to win a house. The goal is to buy the right one for you. Sometimes the best thing you guys can do is walk away from a house. Not every house is worth sacrificing your peace for. You have to make sure that it matches your criteria, it matches your lifestyle, and it matches your budget. If it doesn't match those things, it's probably not worth the emotional turmoil to get it. So don't sacrifice your peace for a quick decision. All right. And I totally understand this process can be emotional. It is an emotional purchase. It's where you're going to be living your life every single day. But we have to be careful, especially during the busy season. Take a breath, take a step back, and remember what your goal of buying the house is. And if that is to build long-term wealth, make sure you're doing it responsibly. But you can do those things by staying prepared, informed, and grounded. So that way, when you're making these massive decisions, you have, something to back yourself up on, have some requirements, some stats, some feelings that you want out of your home, and make sure you're sticking with those. Because confidence comes from preparation. It does not come from luck. So if you need help figuring out what you actually need and or want from a home, let me know. I'm happy to matchmake you with a realtor in your area. And they can help guide you through whatever your market is doing and the best way to strategize and make game plans for you actually buying a home in the market. So thank you for tuning in. And next week, we are going to dive into how to write winning offers. So we're going to go more in the weeds of like what is actually in an offer and some different terms that I've seen and experienced. So don't forget, thank you for tuning in to the No BS Home Buyers Live series, where we are breaking down the home buying process into simple steps so that way you can go from thinking about owning to actually owning a home. And again, I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.